Hey girls, this is Erin and Courtney again with Adorn Girl Ministries. We are making videos to help empower young women adorn the truth of God's Word, walk in the Spirit, and disciple the next generation. Today, we are looking at the truth in God's Word. Again, we're going to continue on with our talk about the death, the actual facts that surround the death of Jesus. And we're going to continue what we started yesterday on into today. After that, after they said choose Barabbas, well, then Pilate takes the Lord and he says it scourges him. And they put a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, they put on him a purple robe, and they begin to mock him. Hail, King of the Jews! And they smote him with their hands. And we know that they also whipped him with the cat of nine tails.
Yeah, if you don't know what that is, it's basically, and I might not be explaining it exactly, but, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was leather, and then they would tie, or they would put like little pieces of metal, or not metal, but glass, bone? Was
bone,
it bone?
Glass, I think anything one had a different,
Maybe not metal. Did they make metal back then? But it was sharp pieces of things, and so as they hit him and pulled, it would latch on to the skin and take it off. So I know that's probably graphic and more than you want it to know, but we need to understand the amount of pain, not just physical.
Yeah.
But mental, emotional. Whew.
Yeah. And like it didn't just come and like tap him on the back. It literally wrapped itself around his body and tore all the way. And so Jesus went through a lot for us.
Yeah. And
so that we can have life, and not only life, but have it more abundantly. And that's what we're talking about. And we're gonna hammer that. This video is probably gonna be really long. Sorry, but it's important. It's very important.
So after Jesus has been beaten, basically to a pulp. I mean, if you want to say that's a terrible description, but he was beaten. Spit on, mocked, and he never raised a hand. He never even said anything, really. But he then has to pick up the cross and carry it to the place of the crucifixion. And in Luke chapter 23, verse 28, it says, "But Jesus turning to them," so let's start at 27. "And a great multitude of people followed him, and women who also mourned and lamented him. But Jesus turning to them," the women that is, "said, 'Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For indeed the days are coming in which they will say, Blessed are the barren, wombs that never bore, and breasts which never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills cover us. For if they do these things in the green wood, what will be done in the dry?'"
That kind of caught me here recently. I don't even know why. Probably because it said daughters. I'm like, oh, that's me. I'm a daughter. And I think we women, we are super emotional, but just the fact that they're following Jesus and they are weeping for him, and he in that state of agony after he has borne the cross, and they literally have to get someone to carry the cross for him because he can't. His body is so broken, he can't do it. So some dude that was just traveling, it says he was coming out of the country, like on his way just out of the country, he just said like, yo, come take the cross.
Yeah.
And so he starts, and then as Jesus is walking, and these women are, and I'm pretty sure the crowd was crazy and probably pressing in on him, his body bruised and broken, and probably hurting him even more. Okay, he says, don't weep for me. He says, weep for yourselves, weep for your children, because as of right now, you don't have what I have. You don't have the Spirit of God living inside of you. So weep for yourselves, weep for your children. And the last verse, verse 31 that she read, "For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?" And basically what that's saying is, if they're doing this to the innocent, think what could be happening, what would happen for those that are guilty. And really, we are guilty.
Yes.
We deserve
Yeah.
the death that Jesus underwent. We are nothing but filthy rags. And I've come to that realization here recently. Before I'm a Christian, before I have a gift or a talent, before I'm a singer, a musician, I'm a Christian. But before I'm a Christian, I'm a sinner saved by grace. And so Jesus is saying that. He's like, weep for those, weep for your children, weep for yourselves, because you are guilty.
Yeah.
I know who you are. I know who you are. And he's saying, weep for yourselves because you don't have what I have.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's my interpretation of it.
And I'm innocent, and they are passing this judgment on me. And so if you remain in your sin, you remain guilty.
Yes.
Which we are all guilty, but we're saved by grace.
Right.
And then you're going to
Good.
You're going to be tormented.
Yes.
In the end, you're going to face judgment. And so it was almost like hey, there's something coming later.
Yeah.
You need to prepare yourself for that. You need to cry about that. Don't cry about me, because I'm going to be raised on the third day.
Yeah.
But no, he was, at that moment, he knew that he was going to be raised from the dead. I mean, obviously, he's God.
Yeah.
But in that moment, he was facing, pain.
And he still said, don't cry.
Horrible pain. And so then it makes even more power when it says, take up your cross.
Right.
And follow me. He took up his cross when he was almost to the point of probably
no strength in his body.
No, probably like dehydration, probably pain so intense that you probably want to pass out.
Yes.
If you're not there already.
Yeah. And then like
shock.
Yeah.
His body was experiencing shock. Had to have been.
Yeah. Really. And who are we to be like complaining about the crosses that we bear?
Yeah.
And like, no, do that.
That's the thorn in my flesh.
Yeah, like
Jesus
Jesus
really?
had many thorns.
Yeah.
And I think that's I don't want to compare us to the Lord, because we are never on that level.
True.
Ever, ever, ever. But when Courtney says he became man so that he could know what we know and be known as we are, and understand us as humans in our frailty, even though he was not frail, he was perfect. He was tempted like as we are. So whenever we say, maybe you're broken, or maybe you feel bruised, or maybe you've been hurt, understand God literally felt that way. He literally bore your cross anyways, so that you did not have to. So you are not experiencing anything that has not been experienced before, and never to the extreme that Christ himself experienced it in the physical.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to move on into the crucifixion. During the crucifixion process, the executioners would break the criminals' legs, and this was to speed up their death. So that let's explain that. So during a crucifixion, they're up like this. Their legs are bent at a 45-degree angle. Their feet are nailed, and I can't go into detail about how it happens, but I just know that it happens. You can look it up if you want. I'm sure it's on Google.
Yeah.
But what would happen was in order to breathe properly, the criminals would have to raise themselves up, take a breath, and go back down. And so they would have to do this over and over. And so the executioners, I guess, would have a little mercy on them and would break their legs to speed up that death. But with Jesus, they did not break any of his bones. And we can actually see a prophecy of that in Psalms 34 and 20. Let's see. And it says, he guards all his bones, not one of them is broken. And we know that not one of Jesus's bones was broken. But the sad thing about that is that it prolonged his death. So he was there taking breaths over and over and over and over, and oh my word.
Yeah. And his torture didn't end just with the nailing, you know. They still mocked him. As the Bible talked about, we talked about that last week in the prophecy. We said they would mock him. They sold his clothes. Actually, they gambled for his clothes. They cast lots for his clothes. They pierced his side. They gave him, they would probably do this for most of the people, give them something to drink to quench their thirst. He was thirsty. They gave him vinegar to drink, a bitter taste. If you've ever had vinegar chips, imagine drinking that straight.
Yeah.
I mean, some of you may drink it. Not Aaron. I can't stand the smell, but literally he drank vinegar. And so I feel like everything that they could have done to make it the worst possible death in the history of deaths, period.
Yes.
They did it for Jesus, you know. The crucifixion was bad in and of itself. For anyone. But with Jesus, it was magnified because his body was beaten and bloodied and bruised, and it was a humiliating death. It was reserved for the worst of the worst of the worst of criminals in that day. So literally, he was led as a lamb to the slaughter, and he died not in a humiliating death for us, but what would have been a humiliating death for humanity.
Yeah.
You know, he took on that shame.
And in that painful moment, like, not just painful, but like excruciating pain, like unbearable pain, emotional, physical, all of that, he takes time to look at one of the criminals on the other side.
Yes.
Be like, forgive him, and say you will be with me in paradise. That's love.
That is love.
You know?
And literally, and he didn't even just do it for him. He's like, God, you see all these people that shouted Barabbas' name rather than mine. You see all these people that called for my death.
Yeah.
And that literally wanted me to die. Forgive them, because they don't know. They don't know what they're doing. And like, I think about myself, how many times do I put Jesus back on that cross? And he still says, I forgive you. I understand. You're still human. You don't necessarily understand all of the spiritual. You don't understand everything that I have for you. You don't understand me fully. But I forgive you anyways. I mean, that is infinite love. And it's amazing love. And I don't have words to describe it.
And so thinking about what he went through, what Aaron just said, like the least, it feels like nothing, like I'm giving nothing when I say the least I can do is sacrifice my life in service to him. You know, like present your bodies a living sacrifice, wholly acceptable. Like, he gave it all. Why would I not want to give my all back to him?
Right.
Because, and that's not, you know, I love him. You know, I love him. And, it's not just about that, but then again it is.
Yeah.
You know, he gave his all. Who am I to think I can hold back from him? You know?
Right. So, like, with her saying, you know, present our bodies a living sacrifice, or what's the least I can do is to live in sacrifice to him. Jesus never asks us to do something that he has not already done, and that he has not already walked through himself.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we forget that aspect, and we're like, God just doesn't understand, or God just doesn't know where I'm coming from. But he
knows
knows
every aspect.
Yeah. And at some point, Jesus, he gave up the ghost. He died. And we're going to talk about what happens after that in videos further down. The whole point of what we've done today, and these past 2 days actually, has been for us to remember and to, again, I'm going to say it, connect, and to maybe have a deeper understanding of the reality of the cross. the word that we saw earlier was we've domesticated the cross. We have the crucifix hung in a photo frame with the sunset. She said that earlier, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pleasant. And we've, if you've never been, shout out to Pentecostals of Alexandria. They do an amazing job of portraying this. And if you haven't been to a play or something, I don't know how many people are doing those this year with COVID. But if you can, find something that helps you to remember, that you can see visual aspects. I remember going to POA as a child. I'm just going to go off on a tangent. Sorry. Yeah. I remember going to POA as a child, and they did the Messiah, and we loved that at my house. We loved the songs. But I remember watching it, and we had, we were on the second row from the, in the back portion where Jesus actually walked and carried the cross. And I remember the man that was playing Jesus he did such an amazing job. And I just remember, sobbing, and I couldn't stand hearing the nails being put in. And that's what we're trying to do with what we're telling you. And then we even had the really awesome privilege. I feel like it's a privilege and an honor we put on a play here at our church. And I remember whenever we saw Jesus walk down our middle aisle. We didn't have the full thing that POA did, but he walked down our middle aisle, the person playing Jesus. Our youth pastor, Brother Trace, did an awesome job, but he began to walk down. And I remember looking across the pew, and my cousin was a scorner, and she was mocking. And I'm I told my brother, I can't mock because I know what it's going to be like. And I just remember that overwhelming feeling this is, and I remember thinking, this is not Trace. This is not Trace. This is your Lord doing this. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying Trace is God, but I put the Lord in the place of that to not only fully embody it for the people that we were trying to portray the story to, because that's what it was about, for souls there, but so I could remember and I could get in touch. And we went through, the crown of thorns. We did all of that. And it was so
I remember standing there. I was a mocker.
Oh, were you?
I was. And I remember, I'm trying to, keep this, stay in character, and I just, I could feel my face just go,
yes.
Because it's such a, remembering that it's just overwhelming.
Yeah.
In some aspects, because you're what do I have to offer you, God?
Yeah.
And all he wants is me, and you. All he wants is you. Completely.
Broken, scattered, scarred. That's what's awesome about this story too, is he takes us as we are. With all of our faults, with all of our failures, with all of our things that we bring to the table that really the Bible calls filthy rags, Our righteousness is as filthy rags. So all these things that we bring to the table, he takes that and he makes it into
transforms us.
Yes.
Something beautiful. So this wraps up our video on the death. Please follow along because we're going to be going through the death, the burial, and the resurrection. During this time, Easter's coming up, and we want to remember what Jesus sacrificed for us. If you have any questions, of course, you can go to your pastor or pastor's wife. You can ask us if you'd like. We pray that you are touched by this video and that you have a better understanding of the death and all that Jesus went through. We will see you in our next video. Bye.